Section 19 of 11 Stories by Henry Hasse. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. Read by Cinda J. M. Eternal Zemmd Must Die. Part 4. 7. The others came quickly awake. Lorene stared, then with a sob threw herself into her father's arms. Landreth comforted her, his face twisting strangely. He had aged greatly. Kurt knew he was still a dominant figure of a man. "Why did you do it, child? Why?" Landreth spoke with great effort. "You should never have come here." Startled, Jeffers was staring at the electronic barrier. "Man, you came through that curtain. How is it done?" Reichert said fiercely, "Are you one of those things too?" "I'm one of them. Heaven help me, but soon I won't be. You must listen carefully now. I haven't much time." Landreth paced the room with great uneven strides, face still twisting, his voice coming with an effort. "They call themselves energons. Their life principle is ionized protoplasm. That's as near as I can describe it. They subsist on the energy source fields that originate within all planetary bodies. Electric, magnetic, graphitic. Call it what you will. They left their system far beyond Pluto because it's in a state of disintegration for lack of the energy magnetic source." Landreth's features had gone pale and tight as if some ghastly struggle were occurring within him. "I and 3 others boarded their ship. It drove toward the sun. We couldn't stop it. We barely managed to bring it to a crash here. In the crash, some of the energons were released. They took possession of our unconscious bodies, and they evolved their plan. They must be stopped." With a great effort, Landreth managed to hold his body erect. Kurt's mind raced. He saw the rest. Landreth and his 3 men were only the beginning. Through them, completely energon-dominated, the net had spread. Other men had been captured out of space and brought here. The energon lifeforms had been taken secretly to other planets to seize upon bodies and bring them into energon control. The plan had taken 2 years, but they had selected well. Jaltagar from Mars had been reached, and doubtless others among the highest officials and scientists in the Federation. This explained it all, the growing havoc and sabotage. Kurt saw the ghastly pattern. Then he saw Landreth collapse against the wall as if all strength were being drained from him. Lorene hurried to his side, but Landreth waved her away. "No, child, don't worry about me now. Heaven knows I've hated Earth. I've done some terrible things in my time, but nothing so terrible as allowing these creatures to get a foothold here." He pulled himself erect. "Jeffers, has the Federation plunged into war?" It was Kurt who answered. "They're on the verge of it." "That is their plan. Already they have the secret of all our weapons. They have the Venus allotropic metal. They have the frequency tuner. With it, they can return to their system and be back here within a year. They'll bring hundreds of thousands of energons. They hope we'll be at war. Our planets will be easy pickings." "The Silver Spacer," Kurt snapped. "They're leaving in it?" "In a few days. The frequency tuner has been installed. Some of the men took it for a test flight yesterday." Again Landreth staggered as if fighting a battle within. "The spacer is well guarded, but I might get you weapons. As for me?" "Then hurry, man." It was Reichert, eager. "Just let me get my hands on an electro again." "2 of you come with me." Kurt and Reichert stepped forward. Landreth looked at his daughter as if there was much more he wanted to say, but there wasn't time. He held her close for a moment, then thrust her away. "Take care of her, Jeffers." Lorene's eyes were red-rimmed, as if she knew she'd never see her father alive again. They all knew it. Landreth inserted a 3-pronged device near the doorway. The curtain vanished. The 3 men stepped through, and Landreth tossed the key back to Jeffers. Kurt observed the man closely as they reached a car which sped them toward the compound above. Landreth seemed drawing upon his last energy reserves. Kurt wondered how the man kept going. And if he was energon-controlled, why had he come to help them? The Tasith drug, Landreth gasped as if sensing Kurt's wonderment. It allows you to regain your identity, but only briefly. I didn't want Lorraine to know that I'm dying. Kurt was aghast. Only Callistians could withstand the ravages of this drug, and eventually it destroyed even them. Landreth must have taken enough to kill 2 ordinary men. Now, the energon force within him was regaining control. Tiny particles of light came from his bare face and hands, similar to radium disintegration seen under a powerful microscope. Landreth, will electros kill these men? The Earthian bodies, yes, but not the energons. Watch out for the potential. That one they call the Zemmd? There is no... His words were suddenly cut off as he clutched at his throat. Their car reached the upper level. Here the pervading blue had deepened to a simulation of night, but still they heard the sounds of work going on. Hurry, man! The weapons first, Reichert was urging. Landreth nodded. Even that was an effort for him now. He seemed suffering untold tortures. Supporting Landreth between them, they neared a low-structure building which he indicated, but Landreth fell. He was a dead weight in their grasp. Then he crumpled to the ground. The spaceship! Wait until... He tried to say more, but the words came slurred and unnatural. They left Landreth there, hurried to the building he had pointed out. They pushed into a large, shadowy room. It seemed a storeroom for tools, as well as strange machines similar to those in the smashed energon spacer. Here they are! Reichert spied the weapons, apparently the same ones Fran had taken from them. The energon-controlled men were so contemptuous of Earth weapons that these had been tossed aside. What next? Try to get to that spacer? Too many men about. We'll have to wait. Kurt felt that this was what Landreth had tried to tell him. Reichert grumbled. With an electro in his hands, he felt he could overcome any obstacle. Remembering Lorraine and the others, Kurt thrust 3 electrodes in his belt and cradled the lensed radiant gun. They hurried from the room. Landreth was dead, but now, with a feeling of danger, Kurt suddenly straightened away from the body. It glowed as if from a weird inner aura. The aura seemed to coalesce, take definitive form. An energon emerged directly upward from the earthly remains. Spinning, crackling angrily, it hung poised for a mere instant, then darted straight at the 2 men. With an oath, Reichert swung his electro up and sent a charge at the 6-inch globe. It connected, sending the thing buffeting back, but that was all. It swept beneath the beam and darted upon Reichert. It fastened just below his throat. Reichert screamed, clutched at the vibrant shape, but his fingers seemed to sink through it. Then the energon was gone, had completely entered his body. The event was so swift that Kurt stood numbed with horror. To fire would have meant hitting Reichert. Now Kurt saw the man stiffen, saw the startled expression leave his eyes. A queer emotion rippled across Reichert's features. Then he whirled upon Kurt, the electro uplifted. Reichert, you fool! Kurt's cry was instinctive as he flung himself aside. The electro beam passed so close to his face he could feel the swirling heat of it. Reichert! But Reichert was no longer Earthian. He was energon. The thought stabbed at Kurt even as he brought the radiant beam around in a swift arc. It slashed across Reichert's body. A sickness rose within Kurt, but it was his life or Reichert's now. He held the beam fast, saw Reichert go down in a mass of disintegrant flame. In seconds it was all over. Kurt waited tensely, but this time there was no sign of the energon form. Could the radiant beam have destroyed it too? But there was no time for speculation. Through the deepening gloom, he saw a group of men approaching. If they'd seen the flash of the gun... Kurt seized what was left of Reichert's body, shuddering as it seemed to fall apart in his hands, but he managed to drag it into the building's shadow, then did the same with Landreth's. The men were coming nearer. Kurt crouched back in the shadows, gun ready. They passed him by, heading towards some rough stone buildings that apparently served as barracks. Now other men were heading toward the barracks as the sound of work died away. Apparently they needed rest, despite the energon forces. Kurt peered toward the central building where the Zemmd reposed. Did it sleep too? Kurt doubted that. At all costs they must avoid the supernal power of the thing. He remembered Frayn's words. You will become a part of us. I promise it will be soon. He must get back to the others. Kurt waited until the way seemed clear, then darted across the compound to where Landreth had left the car. Seconds later he was descending to the lower corridors. A glow from the electron curtain showed him the room. Kurt raced forward, a single thought hammering at him now. They had weapons. It meant a fighting chance if they could avoid the thing that had happened to Reichert. Then Kurt stopped. The curtain still crackled across the doorway, an impenetrable barrier, but he heard Jeffers' voice. I tell you, it's true. Emmons is an official agent of the Earth government. Suppose we do pull out of this. What will your life be worth? He'll take you back for trial. A pause, then, that spacer is allotropic metal, and we'd have the frequency tuner. Think of it. We could build up the organization again. You and I, Lorene. We know all the secret bases and how your father operated. He'd want you to go on, Lorene. Through the rage that rose up to choke him, Kurt called out to them. He saw the blurred figure of Jeffers move toward the door. Then the curtain vanished as Jeffers used the key. Kurt stepped quickly inside. So that's your game, Jeffers. Back to space piracy? And you think you'll use the spacer that Energons have built here? You'd even talk Lorene into it with you? Jeffers' dark face creased in the barest semblance of a smile. Landreth told me to take care of her, didn't he? After all, she used to be part of our crew. And before I see you take her back for trial... Kurt turned to the girl and spoke softly. Your father is dead, Lorene. I'm sorry. He saw her features tighten. She seemed a mere automation, beyond all emotion or grief. Jeffers had taken advantage of this in trying to talk her into his plan. Kurt touched one of the electrodes at his waist. I should burn you, he told Jeffers in a cold, tight voice, and Jeffers went pale. As it is, we're a hell of a way from being out of this spot, and we'll need you. We'll have to make a try for that spacer. He tossed an electrode to Jeffers, handed one to Lorene. What happened to Reichert? He's dead too. Kurt didn't explain further, for he suddenly knew what was wrong here. He whirled upon Jeffers. Tor Eckhoff, where did he go? Why'd you let him leave here? He insisted on it. Something about a telemagnum. He was driving me crazy with that damn tune of his. Kurt swore inaudibly. How long has he been gone? Not long. You've only been gone 20 minutes. Jeffers shrugged. Anyway, he acted crazy. Why worry about him? Why? He'll ruin whatever chances we have. We've got to stop him. Kurt raced from the room with Jeffers and Lorene pounding after him. At the far cross corridor, Kurt paused uncertainly, staring around. What's it about, Emmons? Concern was in Jeffers' voice now. What's that Martian up to? Back there in the spacer, he spotted a telemagnum. If he manages to operate it, the Zemmd's going to know it. We won't have a chance. 8. Kurt hurried to the right, not sure of his direction now in this underground place, but he stopped abruptly at the next corridor. His heart leapt. Huddled against the angle of the wall was the body of a man. Kurt turned him over. It was the man he knew as Frayn. Twisted tightly around his throat, cutting into his flesh, was a plasticoid belt that Kurt recognized as Tor's. Jeffers was right. Tor had gone fanatical crazy, determined that nothing would stop him from reaching the telemagnum and getting his voice through to Mars. But now another thought sliced into Kurt's mind. The energon form which had inhabited Frayn's body. There were two alternatives. Either it had emerged and seized control of Tor, or it had sped back to give the alarm. There was no time to waste. At the end of this corridor, Kurt saw the crumpled prow of the alien spacer. He hurried toward it, Jeffers and Lorene running to keep pace beside him. Kurt squeezed into the low arched doorway. Beneath twisted and tumbled metalloy beams. Again, he was in the room where they'd seen the array of machines, including the one Tor thought was a telemagnum. And Tor Ekov was there. Kurt knew it as the angry sound of an electro being sang close. It splashed against a bulkhead beside him. Kurt waved Jeffers and the girl back, then pressed forward. He saw Tor. The man was still Martian. Kurt could tell that. The energon hadn't reached him. But a glint of madness was in the depths of his eyes as he held an electro in his tight-knuckled fist. He must have taken it from Frayne, Kurt thought. And he solved the secret of the telemagnum. Kurt heard a faint hum, saw the glow of the selector screen as selenic cells poured power into the trans-etheric beam. Kurt came a step nearer into the room. Again, Tor's electro splashed fire at him. "So it's you, Kurt Emmons. No, don't come any closer." The Martian's eyes darted to the lens radiant rifle Kurt held cradled in his arm. "Throw that thing on the floor. I mean it. I'll blast you." Kurt did as he was told. The Martian had gone mad. Helpless and weaponless, Kurt glanced at the screen. A shifting blur was focusing. Turabek, capital city of Mars. Tor had managed to get the beam through. "Don't try to stop me, Emmons. We'll never get out of this alive. I realize that now. But I swore I'd get my voice through to my people. 6 long years I've waited." Kurt tensed, almost leapt forward, but Tor held the weapon steady upon him. It was then that Kurt felt a pronounced overtone across his mind. He knew the Zemmd had contacted them. "Kurt!" It was Lorene's whispered voice in the doorway behind them. He felt the grip of an electro pressed into his hand. "We had a fighting chance, Tor," Kurt grated, "but you've ruined that. The Zemmd has contacted us. He'll send his men down here. Yes, we'll die." He brought the electro unobserved to his side. "And you'll leave the entire Federation prey to these things because of your damn stupid fanaticism about Mars." "Don't try to stop me." With his free hand, Tor brought the Martian scene sharper into focus. Nothing else mattered to him. "A last chance, Tor. You can reach Earth on that thing. Let me contact Earth and warn them of what goes on here. Even if we die, they could send the fleet and blast this place." Kurt saw it was no use. He brought his gun around fast, tried a snapshot from the waist, but Tor was faster. He swayed aside, then his own electro sent its beam. Kurt's arm went numb from wrist to shoulder as the Martian's beam caught his gun squarely and sent it spinning from his grasp. Kurt dived low in a try for the radiant rifle a few yards away. Again, Tor blasted. A spray of molten froth from the floor sent Kurt tumbling back. He poised for another try. To think of failure now was to think of death. But he had failed. This was death. He heard Lorene cry out, heard Jeffers cursing behind him as a rush of feet came toward them down the corridor. Jeffers was battling for his life. A score of men were converging upon them, Jovian, Martian, Earthmen alike. They had but one purpose as they rushed forward under Zemmd's mental command. That purpose was to kill. But it was they who died as Jeffers swept his beam in a deadly crossfire. Lorene had retrieved the electro, and she joined the battle, crouching beside Jeffers in the narrow doorway. Luckily, it offered a measure of protection. A few of these men were armed. Beams slashed and glanced from the walls. In a matter of seconds, the place was a hell of heat and blinding light. Tor was intent upon the telemagnum now. Kurt sprang for the radiant rifle, came up with it, whirled to join the battle. But already the men were falling back out of range. They left 4 of their dead upon the corridor floor. In the brief respite, Kurt remembered Landreth and the energon form. The same thing was happening now. The bodies coalesced with an inner aura of electric blue. 4 energons emerged swiftly and hung poised, spinning, crackling with angry radiance. Then they darted forward. "Don't let them touch you!" Kurt hurled Lorene aside, sprang forward with rifle upraised. Before he could touch the firing stud, the energons were tumbling back wildly, as if in panic. Kurt stared. It wasn't his weapon they feared. Then Kurt knew. It was Tor Eckhoff's voice behind him, sending his strident, high-pitched aria into the telecoordinate beam to Mars. Sound. These things feared supersonic sound. Lorene screamed, clutched at Kurt's arm. Far down the corridor, reaching almost from wall to wall, the huge bulk of the Zemmd itself sped toward them. Streamers of angry violet splashed before it, illuminating the scene. The Zemmd's own men tumbled pell-mell out of the way. The 4 smaller energons sped toward the parent bulk, touched and merged. But the Zemmd never paused. Tor's high-pitched tune seemed not to affect it. A heavy potential rose crackling from the walls. Lorene crumpled and went down. Jeffers, reeling upon his feet, still blasted with the electro, but to no avail. Part of the potential washed upon Kurt and sent him staggering. Kurt hurled himself back into the room, jabbing the rifle at Tor before the Martian knew what was happening. "Sing, damn you! Keep singing! Send your song to Mars! You were right after all!" Tor's eyes went wide, but he needed no urging. He sang. The Martian syllables were meaningless to Kurt, nor did he care. Tor's voice reached the higher octaves, far higher than any operatic star of Earth. Down the scale, then up and up endlessly. Tor sang his message to Mars. It took on a savage note. Something of the pagan was in it, and something of fright. For now it was Kurt who had gone mad with fanatical purpose. "Sing, damn you, or I'll blast you where you stand!" He reached to Tor's side and lifted the electro. He reached to the telepanel and fumbled at the controls. Suddenly the sound amplified 1,000-fold. It flooded the room, reverberating, rebounding into the corridor from wall to wall as selenic cells poured additional power into the instrument. "Sing!" Kurt shouted, and Tor nodded. Sanity seemed to come back to him, and he realized what was happening. Kurt hurried to the corridor. Already the Zemmd's potential was diminishing. The great bulk was tumbling back, trying to escape the waves of strident sound that washed upon it. Now Kurt could feel the shrieking crescendo, like a file rasping over naked nerve ends, and the Zemmd seemed to disintegrate. The color died away. It broke apart into hundreds of the smaller energon shapes. They were dull and disorganized now, moving aimlessly, crashing into the walls where they clung, then slid to the floor. But a few of them retained their inner life force. They came surging forward. Kurt threw up the radiant rifle, spreading a swath of disintegrant power that sent them buffeting back. Gradually they blanked out, until nothing moved in the length of the corridor. The Zemmd's men had long since vanished from the scene. It was over in minutes. Behind Kurt came a harsh roar, then a crash of tubes and metal as the telemagnum failed under the overload of power, but Tor still sang. Kurt stepped warily forward, touched one of the grayish translucent shapes. It was warm. A decided shock, more than electrical, went through his arm. "These things aren't finished yet. We've got to hurry." He stared at Lorene. "What happened to Jeffers?" She shook her head. Horror was still mirrored on her face, but Jeffers was gone. Somehow he'd managed to make his way out. All weariness vanished as Kurt raced back through the corridors with Lorene hurrying after him. He had a chill premonition of what Jeffers was up to. A deathly silence settled over them. Tor's singing had stopped. Not until they reached the lifts did Kurt notice that Tor had caught up with him. The little Martian was deathly pale, but his eyes fever-bright as he shook his head drunkenly and clutched at his throat. Kurt paid him no heed now. They tumbled into one of the cars. A propulsion beam hummed, and they rose swiftly toward the upper compound. Jeffers was there, battling his way past a score of the Zemmd's men. But there was a great difference in these men now. They seemed disorganized and aimless without the coordinating driving power of the Zemmd. Jeffers was heading toward a hangar-like building, the spaceship with a frequency tuner. The man's scheme was obvious now. He'd given up on Lorene, deciding to try it alone. Kurt hurled himself forward, and a path opened for him as men scurried to cover before the blast of the radiant rifle. At all costs he must reach Jeffers. He was too late. Already Jeffers had reached the building 50 yards away. He fumbled at the door, then disappeared. Kurt was there seconds later. A gorge of despair rose in him as he found the door barred from the inside. There might still be time. Jeffers would have to find the secret of the electronic curtain reaching above them. Frantically, Kurt blasted at the door. The metal resisted stubbornly, but gradually it began to melt away. Then, from within, came a smooth, droning sound. It increased in tempo. The building trembled against the full reverberant power, the frequency tuner. Jeffers was going to try to drive through the electronic curtain. Kurt realized his danger and whirled away. The building smashed apart like an eggshell, hurling debris in all directions. Kurt plummeted forward, caught a glimpse of the silver spacer streaking obliquely up on the whining power of the tuner. But it wasn't enough. It struck the curtain and penetrated part way, and there it dangled. There came a scintillant hell of fire and flaming metal. In seconds, the spacer's hull became cherry red and then white. Huge molten blobs of it dripped down. Then an explosion sent them scattering across the compound. What was left of the spacer came slipping out of the gaping rent in the curtain. Gravity took it. It fell in a fiery tangle of wreckage. Kurt was scarcely aware that his legs propelled him away from the scene. He caught sight of Lorene and Tor Ekov and hurried toward them. They huddled in a doorway and looked out upon the scene. Flames crackled up from a few of the buildings. None of the other men were in sight. They had scurried somewhere to safety. There went our last chance. Jeffers fixed everything. Kurt's voice was a well of bitterness. These energon forces weren't finished by any means, and Kurt knew it. Their work would go on. But his mission for Dahares was finished. The secret of this place was still secret. The fate of the Federation had rested upon Kurt's shoulders, and he had failed. As if in answer, a blaze of violet light appeared far across the compound. It was the Zemmd again. A smaller entity now, but Kurt knew it would increase in power as more and more of the energons revived to join it. It moved slowly, as if searching. Searching for the curtain and Lorene. It disappeared, appeared again, and once more vanished from sight. No use fighting that thing. Kurt looked down at his hands and laughed bitterly. He had lost the radiant rifle somewhere. Even his Electro was gone. Maybe if we keep out of sight, it'll think we perished in the spaceship? Kurt! Lorene's huddled figure came suddenly erect. She stood taut with excitement. Then they all heard the sound. Somewhere overhead, but coming nearer, the sound of a spacer. It sped past the broken rent in the curtain, 100 feet above. It returned, braked, hovered on underhull repulsion beams. Then it eased through the hole in the curtain with little room to spare, trailing part of the Kiarthan fog with it. Already Kurt was racing toward the spacer as it settled down. A man stepped from the lock, others crowding behind him. Back! Back there, you! The man leveled a deadly powered rapier at Kurt. Who are you, and what is this place? Never mind who we are, Kurt grated. Lift us out of here. He recognized the Imperial Venus emblem on the man's tunic. We were telecasting, and a strange beam cut into our etheric channel. The Empress Aladian ordered that it be traced. Our directional finders brought us here. The Venusian guard stared around at the flaming holocaust. Man, if you value your lives, get us in that ship and lift Gravs. Something of Kurt's urgency caught at the man. He nodded, turned, and gave swift orders. The radiant bulk of the Zemmd came into sight again, and Kurt saw it speeding, whirling toward them. They tumbled into the ship, the lock closed, and seconds later they were lifting up, carefully through the curtain. There the spacer poised. The Venusians stared through the underports at the blazing, angry bulk of the Zemmd. Something of the truth mirrored in the man's eyes as he turned to Kurt. Shall we try blasting it? We have neutros and engrams. We have... No, it'll take supersonic weapons to completely destroy these things. Powerful ones. Take me to Aladian. I must contact Coordinator Dahares of Earth. Tor Ekhoff paced endlessly as they sped toward the hospitable continents of Venus. His glorious voice was gone, but his eyes had come alive and vibrant. He knew he'd soon return to his own people. But Lorene? She was a forlorn and shattered figure. Her face had gone tragic, especially at the mention of Earth. "You're still thinking of what Jeffers told you?" Kurt said. "Yes, Lorene, I'll have to take you back to Earth. But I can get absolute amnesty for you now. I shall demand it. And there are other reasons, Lorene." "There are reasons." A tightness in his throat made his voice sound strange. She whispered, "Yes?" Kurt drew her to him, and she was happy in his arms. End of section 19.